Our range of guest camera people continue there, so I'm very, very privileged today to get a new one. Where was I? Oh, today we are going to be talking about direct proportion and inverse proportion. It's normally a topic that foxes quite a few people, so I'll attempt to simplify it for you, not confuse you even further. Okay, the best thing to start with is actually a toolkit for all of this. If I was talking about saying something was directly proportional, it's a link between two letters here. So if I was talking about y and x, if I was to say that y was directly proportional to x, that's the sign I'd use, a little fish sign. So I'd say y is proportional to x. The next stage that we'd have to do in a question would say y is kx, and we'll find out why we do that later. In the same way, if it was proportional to the square, it would be y fish sine x squared. To the cube, y fish sine x cubed, and for the square root, it would be y fish sine root x, and so on. So we do it that way. If, however, the question was talking about something being inversely proportional, we'd always have to say y is fish sine 1 over x. 1 over x inversely, it means one's going down while the other thing's going up. Y would be k over x. So let's bear in mind this toolkit here on both sides while we're going to attempt a couple of questions. The first one I'm going to attempt is a directly proportional question, so I'm going to move over to this board here where we've got A is directly proportional to root B. Now A is 21 when B is 49. So the first thing we do is A is fish sine then, and it's directly proportional to root B. Okay, so A is proportional to root B. The next stage is we make our formula. So A, I'm going to get rid of the colours now. So A is K root B. Okay, so our job now is to find out what K is. So we do that by a bit of substitution. So in other words, A is 21, so 21 is equal to K lots of root 49. I'll go over here. 21 is equal to 7k because the square root of 49 is 7, and that gives us k is equal to 3. So in other words, our formula now is going to be A is 3 root B. I substituted my value for k into the formula, and I've restored my A and my B back there. So now, that's always the first stage, construct the formula, that bit's been done. Second stage of these questions is actually to use that formula that we've now constructed. So A is 3 root B. Let's recap. So A is 3 root B. So the question is, B is now 16, what is A? So we've just got to substitute. So A is going to be 3 root 16, which is 3 times 4, because the square root of 16 is 4. So A is going to end up being 12. Sometimes they might ask you to work it backwards, a tricky bit. So if A is going to be 75, what is B? So using that formula again, the A is 3 root B, 75 is 3 root B. Dividing by 3, 25 is root B, and then B then, in other words, we've now got to square this 25, so in other words, B is equal to 625. Carefully don't square root it down to 5, so B is 625, a little trap they might set for you, B is 625, and that's our answer there. Okay, I'm going to do something very athletic now. I'm going to run over to that board there to work out the inverse proportional. So watch. How athletic was that? Okay, so the light intensity here, we're going to deal with an inverse proportion formula now. So light intensity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance d. So d is equal to 2 and I is equal to 7. So I've constructed the formula using the toolkit over there. So I've done the first couple of stages there, using the colours there. What we've got to do now, find k in exactly the same manner as we did with a direct proportion question. So we've now got to find k by substituting the values in. So in other words, my I is 7, so 7 is equal to k over 2 squared. So 7 equals k over 4, which gives us k equals 28. That means now our formula, let's box the formula up now, our formula is going to be I equals 28, that value for k, divided by d squared. So in other words, the I and the d squares have returned, and we've now substituted that value into k. Now sometimes they might give you a table, rather than asking you to find out what k is, what I is when d is this. Sometimes they might just say in the table and say, look, you need to do that. You need to find that. So in other words, we've got to find d when I is 0.28. So we use our formula, I is equal to 28 divided by d squared. So in this case, I is 0.28. And that's equal to 28 over d squared. Rearrangement here. So we're going to have 0.28 d squared equals 28. D squared equals 100, because if we were to divide both sides by 0.28 we get 100. So d is equal to the square root of 100, which we all know is 10. So there we have it, a quick guide on how to work out direct and inverse proportion.